Okay, hello and welcome. Today I have a special guest for you all. Her name is Kim Ashton, and we're going to talk about food energetics, food therapy, and five element theory and food. So, Kim and I met through a yin yoga channel. I can't really specifically remember what it was, Kim, but you mentioned something about five element theory in some way, a book, I think, maybe. And my ears perked up, and then we started talking, and I said, we need to talk more and you need to come on my channel. And we've just been chatting ever since and kind of struck up a friendship. So I'm really grateful you're here today, Kim. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been really fun just meeting people in different groups online, and like-minded people and conversations. So yeah, it was fun. I'm so
I think
excited to be
I
here.
think it's really interesting how you can like that group has 40,000 people and how you can like really kind of quickly suss out your peeps.
Yeah, even within that group, even
Yeah,
it's a common
within
theme
such
of
a
yin yoga.
yeah, within such a huge group of people, you can find your people really quickly.
Yes, definitely.
I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I would love for you to tell us what it is you do, because I think you focus a lot on food energetics and food therapy specifically. Do you
Mhm.
want to tell us more about that? Because
Yeah.
I'm not even really that familiar with what it is.
Sure. So what I do predominantly is the five elements in the kitchen. That's the easiest way to describe it. So I love yin yoga and I teach yin yoga on the side. And I was curious about exploring that actually because I was like, where else is the five elements applied outside of the kitchen? So bringing it back to the kitchen, which is where I started, I actually started in Western nutrition and then realized that there's got to be more to food besides proteins, fats, and carbs. And I was
Mm-hmm.
living in China at the time, and I was living there previously for 16 years. And the notion of food is much more intuitive. It's very seasonal, and they have the five elements, which definitely is well known in the younger generations as it was in the past. But it's very much a part of Chinese medicine and the five elements. And so what we do in food therapy and food energetics, so what I do is a combination of Chinese medicine, food therapy, eating seasonally, understanding which element different foods fall under. And then the energy or the energetics is all the way from how the food is grown, like the direction of the food and the energy of its
Mm-hmm.
life force or chi.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds complicated, but it's actually bringing things back to simple. Like, how is it grown in nature? A carrot grows down and leeks grow up.
Yeah,
Like, it's
right.
that simple.
Right, because in spring, I was thinking about this before I talked to you. I was like, I bet she's going to talk about like asparagus grow up, like,
Absolutely.
and
And
that's
it's
a spring
green.
food.
And it's green. So you got
It's
to eat it
green,
in the
yeah.
spring. And that's the energy of nature. So when we say food energetics, people seem to like, some people just tune out. They either tune out or they tune in and they're like, what's that?
Mhm.
But the people that, and I understandably tune out and think, well, that's just too foreign and too weird. Unless you're into energy or yoga or yin yoga, it can be. And I understand that because we're not brought up to see food in that way.
Mhm.
Going with, the universal laws and energies of when things, um, grow in nature. We just need to observe
Mhm.
that's how simple it can be. Of course, there's different ways you can cook your food. So you could get the same
Mhm.
asparagus and you could eat it raw, you could steam it, you could boil it, you could bake it in the oven, and that changes the energy of it as well by
Mhm.
applying heat. So yeah, it's just to summarize, what I do is help people understand a different perspective on food, in terms of the five elements as a foundation. So I draw on a few different principles. One is Chinese medicine, which is related as well with the five elements to macrobiotics, for example, and then other forms of nutrition. Just I kind of combine them all together.
Mhm.
And my goal is to make it a little more accessible because people tend to label things and different diets and put them in compartments. And I'm all about, well, no, let's just learn a little bit more and then decide for yourself how you want to eat and cook, with once you have a little bit more perspective on
Mhm.
different approaches.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the way that we're going right now is that we don't have to have everything in little compartmentalized boxes. We can
Yeah.
take all the things that we've learned and bring them together and bring the best of all of them.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And relevant to the individual. So, you know,
Mm.
some people like certain vegetables or foods for a reason, whether they, you know, reminds them of something from childhood
Mm.
or different elements. So we all have the 5 elements in us, but we have our predominant element, first one, and then we also have, actually we have 3 out of the 5. So for example, I don't know, I should have done your birthday before actually and seen what element you are, but I'm a wood element by true nature. So I absolutely love spring as a season, and I love all the foods and the flavors associated with that element. Definitely, I actually have 2 tree elements, 2 wood elements. So I'm a big fan of green things and spring vegetables and spring season and vinegar. And vinegar, I love the sour flavor, and that's also in that element. So yeah.
Yeah. So for people who maybe don't know what the 5 elements are, let's just like take a step back and explain what they are so they can follow along with the rest of this conversation.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So the 5 elements are elements in nature. That's the first layer. So we have the wood element or a tree. Then we have fire element. Then we have earth, metal, and water. So they form a circle or a cycle in nature. And with those 5 elements of nature, there's the 5 seasons, and most people get lost already with that because there's only 4 seasons in our Western culture. But the wood element corresponds to spring season, the fire element corresponds to summer, the earth element is related to late summer, so there is like 2 parts to summer. Metal is related with autumn, and water is the element of winter. So we can start, just, you know, if people write that down, I do have some charts if people are interested, we can look at that visually as well. Then we start to realize, oh yeah, we can choose to live more cyclical, just not only with what we eat but how we feel, and live our lives. The cycle also corresponds to the times of the day. So the energy of spring or wood is the morning, and noontime or lunchtime is the fire, and when we're all at our peak. And then the afternoon, the earth element, when the energy is coming down, and then the metal element, the evening, and then water is nighttime when we're resting and sleeping. So for any, I assume a lot of people watching are into yin yoga and follow you, so they might be more familiar.
Yeah, but
with
my students would be, yeah, I'm just thinking if somebody fell on this video maybe because of food therapy or food energetics, they
Okay,
might not
yeah.
be. So I think maybe good to do the background, but yeah, my students would be familiar, and we do 5 element yin yoga, and they're
Nice.
familiar with 5 element theory. So yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I appreciate what you said about the phases and the times of day and things like that. And yeah, so where shall we take it from here? So, if s- I love how you took it into the kitchen, because I think, well, for one, we can kind of get in a rut in the kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like as home
Mm-hmm.
cooks, let's
Yeah.
maybe take it there. Like I find I can get in the kind of cooking the same way. Or actually, let's go here. I- right now, in our world, we're in this. Most of us, I think Australia is doing quite well, right, with the
We're
pandemic.
most places in Australia,
Yeah,
not all, but most. Yeah.
yeah. But I think we're experiencing a lot of uh, anxiety, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or mental anxiety. And I notice my students
Mm-hmm.
are experiencing a lot of anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
insomnia. And if we were to put those into imbalances experienced by the elements, that's really a fire element imbalance
Mm-hmm.
for summer. So we could let's start there and maybe
Sure.
talk about summer and a fire element imbalance, because fire
Mm-hmm.
imbalance is all about joy and connection and, those
Hmm.
loving connections. But when it's in balance, we can really start to feel that racing mind and
Hmm. Yeah.
insomnia and anxiety.
Hmm.
And um, that we could balance this with the food that's available to us at that time of year too,
Hmm. Yeah,
or even
definitely.
balance it with food for our constitution. So we could probably go around the whole wheel as well, right?
Probably. Yeah,
Probably.
and that's the beauty of the five elements. And people think when they start to learn five elements in the kitchen and start to play with food, it can become quite rigid. Like, oh, we have to eat fire element foods in summer, and that's all they do in summer. When really it is interconnected, and it's not about eating certain foods in one part of the cycle or the circle,
Mm-hmm.
but understanding how to balance. And I will explain. I mean, it's hard to cover. It's a very large topic, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll give
So
share a few
let's just take
tips.
that like little slice because I think it's something that
Yeah,
probably a lot of people can relate to, and I know a
yeah,
lot of people are struggling with right now. So
sure. Okay,
let's
so
dive
we'll
in from the
focus on the
pain point.
fire element.
Mhm.
I would love to share a slide just to
Yeah, go
for
for
people
it.
to understand the energy of the seasons, and related with everything that you've just said with anxiety and that busy mind and insomnia that is present in summer for many reasons, which we can cover, is related to the energy preceding that, which is that upward energy of spring.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be too much of that and then not enough calming and soothing energy of earth, which will make sense if I just show you one thing. So let me just pull up a slide. And again, this is not how we see food in the West. We tend to see, as I said, nutrition as quite static. I'm just going to pull up the slide. So I think we'll go with this one first. So just let me know if you can see this energy and movement
Mm-hmm.
slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you mentioned summer, so that's here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start there actually. So if you look at the little arrows, and these are just my little squiggle diagrams,
Mm-hmm.
but the energy of summer is very active and expansive.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to get up early and we want to go to yoga, we want to go running or go to the beach or do this in our day, compared to winter when we just want to stay in bed. So if we talk about, say, insomnia or the racing mind, as you mentioned, or lots of mental thoughts, it's related to the heart and overthinking and the digestion. So we're, this concept of the gut brain connection in Western medicine is, the Chinese have known this for decades, that there is that connection. So if you're thinking too much, it's very much an overstimulation. So that could be a result, as I said just now, about this upward energy of the spring energy and the organs related to that, which are the liver and the gallbladder. So a lot of people don't wind down, except yin yogis, I hope, in the evening. But we don't. A lot of people go from work to the gym or CrossFit or hot yoga or very, you know,
Or
energy
even
expend.
watching movies that are kind of
Yeah,
get the mind going, or even I
yeah,
find fiction now is designed to get you to like cliffhangers at the end of every chapter, to get you to like continue reading.
yeah.
So
So you're stimulated, not
stimulated, yeah.
in your emotions and your energy body. So that's all this part of the cycle, this upward outward stimulation, and as you said rightly, so it could be a movie, it could be physical activity, when really we should be winding down after work or at the end of our day, but people tend to just keep go. So a lot of people, and I know a lot of acupuncturists treat people for sleep issues and racing minds, because there's just too much of this upward outward energy,
Mhm.
and so that's what they'll do. So acupuncture is great as well. And I mentioned the other part of this is this balancing, gathering, or I could also add the word soothing energy in late summer. So once again, you don't have to be in that season to help with your summer issues, you need to make sure that you have that balance, or you know how to use the energies of the different elements to help bring you back into balance, which is ultimately what it's all about with the 5 elements, is understanding each one so that you can complement and balance. So for example, if you've got someone who's got the racing mind and they're very outward, it usually means that they need, and I'll bring this back to food in a second, so it usually means that they need to balance and gather their energy, and perhaps even look at this downward relaxing energy. So you can do that through foods as well as cooking styles. So I'd love to go around the circle and talk in terms of energy and cooking, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I find it's so interesting. I find that like the late summer season is like such a nourishing season. I always talk about late summer as like the mother you wish you had.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Such a nurturing season, such a grounding season. And
so
then
I'll put this up now. So this is the seasons, the same cycle, but just with the season name.
And then the autumn season, I find, is such an interesting season. Like in our culture, it tends to be a season that we just kind of gloss over.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I have an insight to share on the autumn, actually. So my element in it's something called 9-star key. It's we use it a lot in macrobiotics, but it's based on Chinese astrology. So my numbers are wood, earth, wood. So I have a lot of the spring energy, and I've always just not really cared for autumn at all. Just would happily skip it, because if we go around the cycle, I love spring, pretty okay with summer and earth. And then we get into metal and I'm like, oh, I don't like this slowing down. And I used to not enjoy yin yoga because it was too slow for me, but I love it now. And I was okay with winter, even though I don't like the cold, because it meant I was going to get back to spring. So I always and I had this revelation earlier this year. It's only taken me like 15 years to realize this, that I just don't like autumn. And so we're in autumn now in Australia, and I'm like, I'm going to fully embrace autumn. I'm going to love it. I'm going to like embrace the food, the colors, the energy. I'm just going to try and enjoy it more, because it's just my least favorite time of the year and the element completely.
There's a real beauty to autumn. It's become one of my favorite seasons because there's a real preciousness, like connecting with the preciousness within us, the precious gems, like looking back at the preciousness. There's just a real sentimentality to the season that's there to be embraced. And the food in this season, maybe it's because you live in Australia too, but the food here in Canada, in the Northern Hemisphere, oh my God, the squashes, the apples, the pies and the baking. It's, oh my God, the food in autumn is so good. So you're gonna get
maybe
to
you
that.
have some metal element more predominant in you.
I don't know. I really only, maybe I don't know. Whenever I go to acupuncture, I'm all wood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're always banging on about that and my liver imbalance and everything. And never do they say anything
have that as well.
about any of the other things. So, but I really do appreciate, and health-wise, I tend to struggle in spring and autumn. So,
okay. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, back to the food. So so these are the 5 elements and the seasons: spring, summer, late summer, autumn, and winter. So with each season and each element, this is just a very simple representation of foods, but this upward energy with the arrows from that previous chart that I showed is about green vegetables. We mentioned asparagus, leeks. And once again, it's not about only eating upward growing leeks and vegetables, but adding more of those into your life really supports the organs, your mood, and everything, and the energy of that season. So that's just some examples there. In summer, I've picked a grain here, so quinoa.
Can I ask a question while we're in spring?
Sure. Spring, yeah.
So like the way I understand about spring, it's like green and we can eat those bitter. Is bitter good?
So
flavor?
it's a little bit, it's more
More
sour. Bitter
sour,
is
more
more in
sour.
summer. You can, because a lot of the vegetables, like there is a bitterness to them,
Mm.
especially at the beginning of spring when things are just like sprouting. A lot of the sprouts can be quite strong flavors, like
So
broccoli
sour would be
sprouts.
more like lemon
Yeah,
juice or
citrus fruits, grapefruits, limes.
okay.
Um, yeah, and
Vinegars.
vinegars, different salad dressings. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's that spring element in terms of vegetables and the flavor.
Hmm.
In summer, I've picked here quinoa just as an example, to show it's more the red color, and that expand a lot of different grains and different vegetables grow in summer, and there's the most choice is in summer. So it's not just to say, it's pretty hard like to put into pictures. I would have to put lots of different vegetables
Hmm.
and foods, but it is the redness, so red rice, red colored foods, peppers, all the tropical fruits. Watermelon is a great example. I've got here
Mm.
cucumbers. So there are some bitter things that we can eat, and spicy foods like as well, to help us bring out that heat, but also
Mm.
using watermelons and melons and cucumbers to cool us down. So
Mm.
that's more Chinese medicine. They will prescribe different foods for different flavors to help us deal with the external environment.
Mm. So that's
Um,
more like the water to balance the fire then?
More the cooling,
Cool. Mm.
yeah, and hydration. Yeah, sure.
Mm.
Yeah. I won't say water because I don't want to confuse people with the
With the
winter.
winter. Okay.
Yeah, so it's more hydration, like from watermelon or
Mm.
cucumbers or melons in general, because there's so many different types of zucchini, for example.
Hmm.
I don't, do you call them zucchinis?
Hmm.
Yep. Um, yeah, would be perfect example of a summer food, because there's just a lot of, and salads and all the salad family of greens and radish, radicchio and red cabbage and all those beautiful dark red colored foods are wonderful in that season. And then summer, as you mentioned earlier, sort of the beautiful oranges, this moves into autumn. So summer, late summer and autumn, there's that lovely harvesting of all the squashes and all the different types of pumpkins, sweet potatoes, onions, anything that grows just above the ground or
Hmm.
just under is that lovely, nourishing, balancing um, element. And to be honest, most people don't get enough of that. And when we're talking about anxiety and stress in general, most people are missing this naturally sweet
Hmm.
flavor in their food. I would say all year round and for everybody.
Mm.
Um, so the idea, actually, back in Chinese medicine, back in the day, the earth element, which is this late summer element, used to be in the middle
Yeah.
of this cycle for good reason, in that it's the most balanced one. And anyway, for the purposes of our discussion, it's in the cycle, but it's something that we can draw upon more, especially in modern day life. And when yin yoga is all about relaxing, calming the nervous system, slowing down, we can really utilize this element and the flavor and the foods and the energy of, for example, if you steam an onion or you roast an onion, it becomes really sweet. Same with
Hmm.
squash, pumpkins, same with sweet potatoes. And we're missing that natural, even carrots, we're missing that naturally sweet flavor, which is very soothing for the stomach and the spleen. You don't tend to suffer so much from overthinking and over worrying and anxiety
Mm.
when your spleen is really happy. But most people, when I say eat more sweet vegetables, they just look at me like I'm crazy, because we get enough sweets, or we think we do, from fruit and white sugar and donuts and cakes and whatever, cookies, muffins, all those sweet things, but those are artificial sweetness and they stimulate us in
Mm.
bad ways. So I really encourage people who are trying to balance their racing mind or feeling anxious, feeling stressed, can't sleep, to look at balancing this earth element in its entirety. And a simple way is just to start eating, you know, pumpkin mash and sweet potatoes and
Hmm.
slow cooked onions, and just having carrot juice or roasted carrots, and that energy and the quality of all the vegetables in this season can be applied to anybody at any time. Is really a top way. I have clients that I just prescribe them more foods from this category, and it just calms them right down.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, it's the power of food. It's the
Yeah.
simplicity as well.
Yeah.
And then in autumn, it's this downward energy. So we're looking at turnips, radishes, carrots are in there too.
Hmm.
In Chinese medicine, lotus root is the star in
Hmm.
autumn. So you probably would have to go to Chinatown or a Chinese or Korean or Japanese grocer to get lotus root, but fresh anyway. You can get them frozen. But I don't know if have you ever had lotus root?
Um, at restaurants, but
Restaurants? Yeah.
yeah, I might be able to get them in Chinatown here. Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah. An Asian grocer would have them. Korean stores have them a lot as well. So lotus root is the season where I am now, and moving into autumn. But
Hmm.
again, anything that's growing inward and downward, and I'm happy to go round as well to talk about grains. But in autumn, the grain, the perfect grain is buckwheat. Um,
Mm.
because it's this pointed, very contracted
Mhm.
grain, and it's the perfect thing to have as a porridge, or I make risotto out of it, buckwheat
Oh,
risotto,
that's a good idea.
because it's mushy and
Hmm.
soft. So it's a perfect autumn example. So once again, you can use that energy if you are too outward and expansive and eating salads all the time in summer,
Hmm.
and you want to calm down and have this sort of soothing, downward focused energy. Start eating pumpkins, carrots, turnips, parsnips, lotus root, sweet potato, like all of this energy of
Hmm.
foods, and stop eating raw salads and leeks and, I don't know, spring onions, because it's got a very strong upward energy. Um, so, or even moving into the winter element, which is all about root vegetables and that really deep down energy. So I've got here burdock, which is a very rare one to find whole. We have it a
Hmm.
lot in tea, burdock and dandelion tea. So you could start having that. If you can get it fresh, then even better. Chinese medicine stores will have dried burdock as tea as well, and they put it in soups. So that's a nice thing to add in. And then beetroot as well is a nice one. Um, a lot of the Chinese yams, mountain yam, um, are really good as well. So that's just a snapshot or an example of the energy of the food and the types of vegetables that we can eat in the different elements. You can do this for grains. You can do this for fruits. Like there's many different layers of seasonal foods based just on the 5 elements. But I always start with vegetables because it's easier to visualize for people.
Yeah, I think people can think about how a garden grows.
Yeah,
Most people know the way
yeah.
vegetables go, so it's really sort of easier to visualize, right?
Yeah, definitely. And going back to what you said about mental anxiety and insomnia, so I'll just reiterate this earth element and that
Hmm.
sweet flavor. So we also say like yin and relaxing kind of cooking. And so desserts are also something that can be really nice to help calm people down once that spleen is relaxed and it's happy. It doesn't tend to worry so much or influence the heart and the small intestine in summer that are getting all fired up and all worked up and flustered. So really trying to soothe the body down. So I encourage everyone to eat healthy desserts and lots of sweet vegetables. And you mentioned apples, even though they're not technically a summer fruit. If you got to use sweet flavors, then have some apple juice, for example. It's very, very soothing
Hmm.
to young and old people, just to have that sweetness to relax. So yeah, a lot of us are overstimulated over here in spring and summer in terms of energy. Um, Too much caffeine, doesn't help. Too much sugar doesn't help, just in terms of food.
Mm-hmm.
Eating a lot of packaged food, processed food, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
help either. It just all contributes to this chaotic energy in the body. But if you're eating fresh whole foods, then that helps already. And then just trying to begin to apply a little bit of this energy, and different, just being aware and mindful of different foods in different seasons as well.
So you mentioned that the way that we cook also
Mm-hmm.
contributes to the
Yeah,
balance that we're creating. So
it does. I'm just going to see if I have it here. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, I don't know that I have it in here because this is a presentation on something else. So, I'm trying to. No, I don't think it is in here. Let
it sounds
me
like if I was to take a
stop this.
stab at
I'll find
it,
it.
that if like we're cooking things quickly, that could be contributing to that, like upward energy and
Absolutely.
expansive energy. But if I were
Yeah.
wanting to calm things down and to sleep better, that it might be better to cook like slow cooking soups, slow cooking stews.
Yes, definitely. So let me share this. This is actually from a yin yoga and food energetics presentation the workshop that I teach. So this is also, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is really important for people to understand in their home kitchens. So I use the word relaxing and contracting. I love the words yin and yang, but it can be confusing for people. So we'll just go with relaxing and softening, and
Yeah, I like
opening.
that. Yeah.
Opening, which is right at the top. So raw food and pressed salads are very relaxing and well, they can be relaxing, but they're more opening.
Right. Yeah.
Which for some people that are opening to expanding too much in summer, that's when the chaoticness can happen. And then contracting is that energy and that warmth and that tightness and that nourishing winter things that we want in winter. So that's down here in terms of
It's like being held in
baking.
a hug. So maybe
Yeah,
contracting might could be like a negative connotation too. Like it might be thought of like
sure.
tension, right? So, but I get what you're saying. So
Focus.
that's why I wanted to say that it would be like that drawing inward, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, inwards.
Rather than the
Focused.
dispersing anxious energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who are a little in the head, and stressed, or this chaotic, too expansive energy, then I would actually, even in summer, suggest boiling, like slow cooking, pressure cooking, baking. Yeah, probably up to baking, just to calm them down or bring them in. Making a nice nourishing soup, for example, is a great, like a pumpkin soup, even in summer, would be a really good one. So if we start at the top in terms of raw food, it's very, it's expensive because it lifts you up. If you also think of where people live, so I always use the example of Southeast Asia. It's hot all year round, and say in Singapore and Thailand, they pretty much eat up to, well, they use wok frying as well, but they don't really do slow cooking, pressure cooking, or baking.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in a climate or a season that's hot all year round, you're affected the most really by your external environment. So when they use wok frying, even though that there's heat and there is an expanse, if you think of that out and openness of a stir fry, that helps when somebody's in balance to release heat. They eat curries, for example, same thing, just to sweat and release that heat. So another thing with insomnia and anxiety or stress is that there is this energy of expansion, but it's trapped, like it's just stuck in the head. So, and same with headaches, it's not getting out. So that's another way to also look at it,
Yeah,
depending on
it
where you
makes me
live.
think of like ventral vagus nerve and trauma theory. It's like if you're really anxious, it's not really very helpful to lie down and do meditation or to.
Yep.
You gotta have a student who describes it as you gotta land the plane. You can't just like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta slowly bring it down.
Yeah.
So you got to do some things first. Like if I know you, I think you practice Qigong too. It's like you
Mm,
got to disperse the energy first
yeah.
before you flow the energy, right?
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's got nowhere to go.
It's got nowhere to go. It's just, it's like you say, it's trapped. So that's interesting with food too, that you take that really, that energy that's just kind of frenetic, that, you know, could be tired and wired, that wired energy,
Mm.
and give it somewhere to just release.
Yeah, and so you can definitely feel that. So, for example, if you there's no right or wrong way to eat, and there's no right or wrong way to cook. It's just very, individual and what your life circumstances are. But when you start being aware of what we just talked about in terms of the energy and seasons, and then the next level up would be, well, how is the way I cook? So I always use the example of a carrot. You can have a carrot raw. You could just eat the carrot. You could make it into a salad. You could steam it, you could saute it, you could boil it, you could bake it in the oven. And that carrot's energy will change, and you can utilize that for what you need. So, for example, if you're really stressed and you have a crazy day at work, have some raw carrot sticks. That'll be great. If you're feeling a little bit lost or a little bit in the head, then maybe you want to like bring your energy down, and inward was a great way, as you said, or even landing the plane. Maybe you want to slow cook it in a stew, or maybe you want to do a beautiful tray of root vegetables baked in the oven. Like that will change how you feel just by eating the carrot in a different way. And I understand it's a little bit
I think
weird
even
for
like
people.
taking the time, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that you're talking for the bottom ones, they take longer, and so there's that time that it takes to cook and prepare the food. Like in
Yeah.
autumn, late summer, I love. You're making me think. Oh, maybe I have more metal in me than I realized.
Potentially.
I love that time of year because for cooking, because it invites in a longer time to prepare your meals, and I
Hmm.
just love roasting the vegetables in the oven. And
Hmm.
whereas at the I think it's very balancing for all the wood, right? The metal
Hmm.
cooking.
Yeah.
But yeah, whereas for me right now, I'm in the opposite season of you, and in
Hmm.
spring, and it's very quick cooking, right? Like
Yeah.
you're doing like the wok cooking a lot, that I find
Yeah.
at this time of year.
Hmm.
I'm doing the wok cooking. Things are very quick. I'm not turning on the oven very much this time of year. It's
Yeah.
all stovetop
It's
quick.
perfect.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I find it's a very different energy, not
Yeah.
as, yeah, it's like the seasons, right? Things are
Hmm.
quick bursts. Like, here we go, turn the heat up high, cook it fast. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And beautiful salads or fresh
Mm-hmm.
vegetables from the garden or the farmer's market, and sprouts is a really, like, raw sprout. That's the
Mm-hmm.
really perfect energy of spring, because you got this little cute sprout, whatever sprout it is, alfalfa or broccoli sprouts or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
I
it's
just put
that
some pea sprouts on
energy.
my
Oh, pea sprouts are delicious.
yeah, they're so good on the top of my lunch today too. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're so
Perfect.
they're so tasty too.
Yeah.
But
In
yeah.
that season, if I was to
Hmm.
try and eat sprout soup, because of course they sell them in supermarkets all year round, um, as with most things, it's just the wrong energy. And you see people eating the same food the whole year round.
Hmm.
And if they're in your part of the world or mine and not in the equator, that's not how we should eat. So, and I see people, especially in the health food and yoga world, eating sprouts and salads and
Hmm.
whatever all year round. And I'm like, that's just not balanced. And it's not right or wrong. It's just not balanced way of eating. And that leads to imbalances and then cravings. So people will start to
Hmm.
crave certain foods, sweet foods, or more satisfying foods or nourishing foods, especially in autumn where I am. So, and then I'm like, yeah, go and eat like a big bowl of, brown rice or roasted veggies or different
Hmm.
meats or whatever their preference is. So that can also lead to imbalances. So, but balance is a tricky word. I understand it's hard to stay balanced.
But what I'm
Um,
kind of hearing, like what I'm taking away from what you're saying, because is for myself is to let go of the rules more and
Mm-hmm.
follow my own intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm feeling like lately I've been craving bananas.
Mm.
Well, so bananas sounds to me like they would fall in that late summer sweet fruit, a sweet
Mm-hmm.
dessert kind of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
category that would be very nurturing and centering and grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep, yep, it does. All tropical fruit technically would be more in the summer, yeah, and
More in the
late
summer.
summer, and like
So
it
it
can
would
go
be
into the
more
late summer.
expansive.
Yes, all
Banana would
tropical
be.
fruits. If you think of a
Okay.
pineapple, it's the best, and a
Mm,
watermelon
mm,
or
mm.
jackfruit. It's just got this. It's just like it's huge, because
Yeah,
that's what
actually,
happens in tropical places.
so I would
So,
eat pineapple to expand my I if I would needed an energy burst, I would eat
yeah,
pineapple for sure.
it's fantastic. Yeah, and it's got lots of water and
Mhm.
fluids in there and electrolytes and all those wonderful things and
Mhm.
digestive enzymes and all of that. So it's a fantastic fruit in that season.
Mhm.
But if someone was living, which city are you again in? Well, you're in Canada, right?
I'm in
So
Canada. I'm in Victoria, BC.
mhm.
Yeah.
Actually, all of Canada. So if you were eating pineapple in winter, for example, it'd
Mhm.
be really the wrong energy because it's so cold where you are.
Mhm.
But you see people do it. You'll see people eating watermelon and pineapple and mangoes in winter, even in Australia. And I'm like, no, it's the wrong season. We do grow it
Mm.
in Northern Australia. We do have tropical places. But the point being, unless it's grown locally in that season and you're eating it, it's not living with the elements and with nature. And that can create imbalances. If not today or tomorrow or this season, because we're moving in
Mm.
the cycles and we go all year round and the next year and the next year and the next year. And in Chinese medicine they will say if you have an imbalance, an extreme condition this year or this season, it'll affect you on the next round, and that's something that's
Oh.
important. And you can also nourish, like how well you're embracing spring will affect the rest of the cycle and the opposite season. So coming when you in 6 months, when you get into autumn and winter, if you've expended all your energy in summer and you've had a fabulous time partying and traveling and doing lots of things, and you haven't nourished and nurtured yourself during that season, then you'll feel extremely fatigued when you come into autumn winter. And same in autumn winter. If you're in autumn winter and you're not resting and hibernating and having lovely baked foods and stews and doing more yin yoga and reading and relaxing, then you won't have as much energy when you get to summer, the top
Mhm.
of that circle. So it just I'm writing a course on cycles at the moment, just for people to understand that it keeps going and there's many layers to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I find when I'm teaching about the five elements too is that they're not things.
Yeah,
They're phases and they're cycles, and that
yeah,
each season we travel through, the elements reveal more to them, to us, about
yeah.
themselves and about ourselves, right? Because we all have all the elements within us, and each time
Yes.
we travel through the phases, we learn more about ourselves and about that particular season as well, which
Hmm.
I love that about it so much.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And it's an opportunity to sort of discover new things each time we come into a season, as part of that cycle, whether it's of the cycle of the day or the cycle of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as I said, this year I'm just taking on autumn and being really mindful of it, um, and I say trying to enjoy it more. I mean, I do enjoy it, especially the food, but I've just come into awareness. I'm like, oh, I usually just skip autumn. Like I just want to get through it. So yeah, I'm going to take that passion that you had just now for all those nice warming foods. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah, make an apple pie. Oh my
yeah.
God. Or an apple crisp. So what's
Yeah.
your aspiration for autumn then? Like it seems like, actually just watching you right now, it actually seems like you still have a lot of wood energy going on in autumn. You're
Oh,
you're you're
definitely. I
birthing so
do.
many new
I
things right
do.
now.
I do. and that's the thing, when you understand the elements in general, but then also your individual elements. And I will after our interview separately, I'll do a quick calculation and reading for your elements. So no matter what season it is or where I am physically, in the world, if I'm traveling or if I'm in a season where it's in a place where it's autumn, for example, now, my innate nature is to get up and go and do stuff. So I really have to be extra mindful of autumn, to slow down and surrender to the fact that I don't need to do 500 things at once. It's very, very hard. But so my insights for this year is for autumn is to try, because it's not in my nature, to slow down, to surrender that I don't have to get everything done, even though, as you said, I'm birthing lots of projects and trying to do lots of things. I'm just trying to release the pressure that I put on myself, and we all put pressure on ourselves, to do all that, because I know I'm not going to wait till my spring, but there's a spring quality in terms of being very energetic and passionate about doing things that I can't just shake that off or lock that up. It's not going to happen. But just being aware of that. So yeah.
The thing that I'm growing to love about 5 element theory so much is the generating, and I've been calling, I think I've renamed it, so I may not be saying it the way they say it in it, but the moderating influence.
Yep.
Yeah. So the thing about metal is that it's so important for us people that have dominant wood, right? Because it really balances us out a lot, the wood, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll just pull this up.
That's been something that I've been really,
It is.
So metal is so balancing for wood. And yet it can be one, like if we come into relationship, I know if I'm in relationship, I love being most in relationship with earth people, right? Because that's the one that I can really sink my roots into, right? And feel very nourished by. But if I'm in relationship with a metal person, that's the way that 5 element theory says is that they control wood, which can be that's harder, right? So that's why I've started to, rewrite it for myself, that if I think about metal moderating or balancing me more, that's sort of reframes it or rewrites it in a way that is more helpful for me to be in relationship with it, I think.
Yeah. So that brings out a really interesting point. And we've spent more time talking about food today, but in terms of emotions and personality, which is a whole other layer of the elements, because really everything can be applied in 5 elements. But so there's the 5 different elements in the innate personality. So a wood person is, I'm guessing, just feeling that you've got wood and metal in you, but we'll do the numbers separately and we'll find out. But I don't, and as I said, I just tend to skip metal altogether. I have in the past found metal people very difficult when they're out of balance. So when everybody is in balance, and which is very few people, we all get along and we're all fine. But for example, water people are literally very flowy and very sort of indecisive, and just that kind of nature to them. For a wood person, that can be quite difficult, because wood people just like to get things done. We're very good at planning, we're very good at organizing, and water people are just like, I don't know, let's just get up and decide tomorrow, and wood people are like, no, we're going to do this at 8 o'clock, and then we're going to do this at 10 o'clock. Very organized. And metal people, when they're out of balance, can be very inward to the extreme, where they don't talk and they don't share, and they hold their emotions layer upon layer. It's not bad or good, it's just the way that they do that. Whereas fire people on the other end of that extreme they don't hold anything, and they'll just express and share, and they're very talkative. So each personality.
Very charismatic fire people. I always think of them as the celebrities.
They are. You know them when they're in the life of the party all the time.
Yeah, we're like and I find I have a lot of fire friends because wood feeds fire. And they're, I always find I'm like a moth to their flame. I can't resist them, It's like, I'm like,
They're fun. Oh, they're so fun. They're
They're so
really, really
fun.
fun people. Yeah. But again, if no matter what element you are, if you're in balance or relatively balanced, then everyone's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just this conscious realization this year. My brother's a metal element. And metal, I'm not saying, again, any element bad or good, but it's just, I find metal, sort of autumn season metal people in the past, I've really, and even things like yin yoga is very inward and relaxing and slow. I just, from my wood expansive growing energy springness, it's just been a
Yeah.
real
My
challenge for
daughter's
me.
metal too. And, like she's my daughter, but metal
Mm,
people are very difficult to get to know.
yeah, because they're very quiet
They're
and
very
they
inward
have a
and
protection around them.
their heart. Yeah. Their heart. They keep the cards very close to their chest and that's just the way they are. And then earth, which we haven't really covered, they're very nurturing and mothering and caring people
Yeah,
and sometimes overcaring, right? They can
yeah, yeah.
overcare. But
That's
yeah.
the imbalance. Yeah, yeah. That's
Mhm.
smothering and
Smothering, yeah.
too much attention, and yeah.
Yeah.
But in general, like, yeah, Earth people are
They're
loved
the
by
ones
all.
that show up at the picnic with extra forks and knives that everybody has what they need. And,
They look after everyone else.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you forgot the cups, but they've got extras. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
those are the earth people.
Those are
I
the
mean,
exactly.
we would never, the world would not turn without them.
Absolutely.
And
Exactly.
we need all of the people, like, we need everybody. And water
Yeah.
people are just brilliant, insightful, wise people too, very
And they're good
wise,
problem
very deep.
solvers because they don't get worked up. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, in like an emergency or stressful situation, look for a water person because they'll
Mm,
just be like, it's fine. We'll just find our way out of it. It's fine.
mhm.
Whereas a fire person would be like tearing their hair out, going, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
So yeah, water and earth people are pretty grounded and able to think their way out of
Mhm.
issues. But yeah, but bringing it back to food. So
Yeah.
having that balance is important of all the elements. And I just want to touch on the idea of not just the vegetables and the food and the cooking, but also the flavor. A
Mm,
lot of Chinese food, but also Asian food, in most dishes will have a little bit of salt, a
mm,
little bit of pungency, whether it's through the seasoning or through the food, the vegetable or the food itself. Most of the meals are quite balanced in terms of the flavor, the layers of flavor,
mhm,
and you find that. Whereas, I find that a lot of, and this goes to, I mean, if you look at traditional cultures and foods as well, like Italian food or French food, like we used to really understand. I'm thinking of grandma's cooking or great grandma's cooking. It was very balanced. If
mhm,
it's not one dish that has all the flavors, then a meal definitely would.
mhm,
Um, would cover all that and then maybe have a nice wholesome fruit based dessert, whereas
mhm,
nowadays it's very, well, definitely very detached from this concept and nature and seasons, but we tend to just have salt and sugar
it's
and
true.
it's separated. And
Mhm,
so that's also, I want to encourage anybody watching to, if you're making a salad dressing, don't be afraid to have some vinegar, but have something sweet in there or a little bit of spice, or um, use some chives or spring onions for that pungency, and just try to get a more um, nice balanced flavor. And don't be scared to use different seasonings and different vegetables to find that balance.
that's fantastic. I feel like you've just kind of whet my appetite for all of this too, which is great. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you feel like you'd like to just make sure you leave people with as we wrap up?
um, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes with 5 elements. It comes down to understanding a little bit about each element, and then just remembering that it is a cycle and it's not once and that's it, that it's done. It just keeps going and it keeps giving, and there's so much to share and learn. And I'm still learning and experimenting.
Mhm.
So the best way to get your head around 5 elements, if you're new to it, or you're new to the food side of it, is just to try. Um, we only did a general introduction here today, but yeah, just I hope it inspires people to get at least a bit more curious and get in the kitchen and play with some of the ideas of the energy or the flavors of the food.
And where can people find out more about you if they want to know about more 5 elements and food things?
Yeah, so my website and Instagram and Facebook as well is Qi Food Therapy, so QI, foodtherapy.com. And I have some ebooks. I've just started with the basics, so there's like breakfast and beans and more Western nutrition, but then there's also Chinese medicine series where we have at the moment 3 ebooks. One's just basics of Chinese medicine, and then I'm co-authoring them with a Chinese medicine doctor, an acupuncturist. So eventually we'll have a common health condition and recipes for each element. So at the moment we have earth and wood with managing dampness. So we've picked a common condition in Chinese medicine and then using food to rebalance that out. And so the other one is liver qi stagnation, which is a very common one. And I'm sure you're teaching lots of fabulous classes in the spring, summer. So looking at those organs and the emotions related to wood and fire.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. I think people will really enjoy that. So thank you so much for being with us today, Kim. I really appreciate getting to know you and spending this time with you today.
Thank you for having me. And thank you
so
everyone
welcome.
for watching.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for being here. And if you have any comments or questions, just be sure to put them down below. I'll be watching them. And if there's anything I can pass on to Kim, I will. I'm sure that she and I will stay in conversation. We're talking about doing some things together later in the year. And yeah.
Would love that. Yes.
Yeah. So be sure to like the video and leave your comments. And but why don't you guys put food is medicine in the comment? That would be good. And then if you like the video, we'd love for you to subscribe and go on over to Kim's website, Qi Food Therapy as well, for sure, and check her out there. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.